All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Elysian Fields and Goose Goslin combined special SABR meeting where we are going to celebrate Jerry Izenberg. And it is so wonderful to see so many people coming out to this Zoom meeting to take part in this wonderful event. Making this even more special is we don't usually have meetings on Wednesday nights. And so the fact that so many people changed their schedules to come together as a combined Sabre group. And of course, we have Bruce and Molly coming from the Clyde Sukeforth chapter in New Hampshire and Maine. So for so many people to come out of their way to spend the time, that just tells you a little bit about how much Jerry Izenberg means to so many of us here. And it also talks about how special these Sabre groups are. So it's absolutely wonderful to have you all here. And it gives me great pleasure now to introduce Anthony Arrett, who is the man who runs the Goose Goslin chapter and who has the distinct honor of introducing our special guest tonight.
Thank you, Paul. Jerry Izenberg is honored with the 2025 Russell Gabay Award, and the Elysian Fields chapter and our chapter, Goose Goslin, of the Society for American and Baseball Research, are honored to announce this. The award is bestowed annually upon a person or entity with a demonstrated ongoing commitment to baseball in New Jersey, with the honoree selected by a vote of the membership of the two SABR chapters and Gabay's sister Lori Gabay. Izenberg grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and as a boy loved going to Rupert Stadium to watch the Newark Bears, the minor league affiliate of the New York Yankees, and the Newark Eagles of the Negro National League, with future Hall of Famers Larry Doby and Monty Irvin amongst its stars. Izenberg later became close friends with each of them. His tribute to Doby, Larry Doby, in Black and White, The Story of a Baseball Pioneer, was published in May of 2024. After high school, Izenberg attended Rutgers Newark, where he was the editor of The Observer while working as a copy boy at the Star Ledger. His journalism career was interrupted by the Korean War and resumed with him writing for the Paterson Evening News, followed by return to the Star Ledger and then a stint with the New York Herald Tribune. Izenberg returned to the Star Ledger in 1962 as a columnist and is still wordsmithing for the publication as columnist emeritus more than 60 years later. He also hosted a television show in the 1970s and a radio show in the 80s. Izenberg has written a myriad of columns about baseball, as well as two books with baseball ties other than 2024's Doby release, The Greatest Game Ever Played, The Incredible Battle Between the New York Mets and the Houston Astros for the 86 National League pennant, and Baseball, Nazis, and Nedick's Hot Dogs, Growing Up Jewish in the 1930s in Newark. And just a little background on Russell Gabay. He was a native of Springfield, New Jersey. He began his career in the late 70s producing for ESPN. For 20 years and until his sudden death in 2016, he was the vice president and executive producer of international broadcasting for Major League Baseball. He was a huge baseball fan and had a reputation as a loyal professional with a true sense of team. Gabay was also known for his friendliness and generosity, whether towards people trying to break into the business or veterans with several decades of experience. So, Jerry, congratulations again. Very honored to be here with you and award you this award. I also wanted to say what was on the plaque. The 2025 Russell Gabay Award presented to Jerry Izenberg for your outstanding contributions to preserve and celebrate New Jersey's rich baseball history. From the Elysian Fields and Goose Goslin, New Jersey chapters of the Society for American Baseball Research. So again, Jerry, congratulations and thank you for everything you've done for New Jersey and for the sport of baseball.
Well, thank you. I guess I'm supposed to respond right now. Donna, did you have something you wanted to say, or shall I just go?
No, you say, and then we'll do a little bit of Q&A. You run this, Jerry.
Well, I doubt that, but and I'm not getting in an argument with you no matter what. Um, I will tell you this. I saw my first baseball game when I was 7 years old. I was in Newark, and the Newark Bears, who were the principal farm team of the Yankees, they owned the city. When I was in high school, I worked downtown wrapping gifts in Browning King department store, worst wrapper in the world. But when I got off the bus at night coming home, no air conditioning, every window open in the summer. I could go 5 blocks and not miss a single pitch of a Newark Bears game. That's how much this town was deeply, it was a factory town. 400,000 people, that's not hay, but it was a factory town. And they loved the Bears because he brought the white community together. Now, early on, I learned how to sneak into Hooper Stadium where they played. And they wouldn't bother you. The ushers leave you alone during the week. Nobody was there. But the weekend, you better not try to get in the grandstand. They throw you out of the ballpark. So I'm there now, and I find an old scorecard left over on the ground. And the guy's walking to the bullpen. I won't mention his name because I was at fault, not him. I said, will you sign this, sign this? He said, not today, kid. I didn't realize. I thought these players were gods. I didn't realize the guy he might be constipated. He and his wife might have had a fight because they could have sex the night before. Or they were people, they were men. I wanted none of it. And I was a pushy kid. I said, you can do it, you can do it. He took the program and tore it in half and threw it on the ground. Well, I want to tell you, if it had been a Jersey City Giant or Toronto Maple Leaf, I could have understood. But these were my guys. How could he do this to me? So I'm biting my lip. I'm about 10 years old, trying not to cry. And a woman comes up to me and takes me by the arm and says, come with me. Well, I think she's going to throw me out of the ballpark. She walks me down the third base line where the Bears dugout was in that park. And a bunch of women, and she says, you sit with these ladies till I come back. Well, I didn't know it, but they were the wives of the Newark Bears. So they bought me ice cream. This isn't too bad. At least I'm going with something in my stomach. She comes up the steps with a baseball. Every Newark Bear has signed that ball. She hands it to me and says, this is for you. No ball player should ever do that to a kid, like any kid. Lady, she said, what's your name? I said, Jerry. She said, this is Jerry. I have a feeling he will get in more trouble as summer comes on. He's not burdened with any school. So if you see him and he's having trouble with the ushers, step in and help him out. Will you do that, please? She was my baseball goddess. Then she said to me, do you know my husband? And I said, I don't know. Who are you? She said, I'm Mrs. Sternweiss. My husband is the second baseman. This second baseman led the American League in hitting the following year, wartime year, with the lowest average anybody ever had to do it. Well, I was in love with her. This was the greatest thing that ever happened. 30 years go by. I'm now back in Newark. I'm writing a column. We had what you called a wire room where all the teletypes, bang, 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 you go deaf in there. I'm going to look at a sports teletype because I want to see what happened. I tell you, I don't have a column to write. The railroad bridge between New York and Newark stuck and didn't go down. And the commuter train crashed into it, the greatest train disaster in the history of New Jersey. I'm looking at it, and suddenly I see a manifest. George Sternweiss's name is there. I got to go in and write a story about what a wonderful woman his wife was. I go, I do it. About 2 weeks later, I get a neatly typed envelope. I open it up. I can't read one word. It's sprawled everywhere. And the little post-it is attached to it. Jerry, I am Mrs. Sternweiss's nurse. She was determined to try to write this letter to you. You probably won't hear from her again, but she said she never forgot you. Well, I sit down, I write the piece. Then I'm working on piece about my early life. Really, I wrote it too soon. I wrote it in 1977, my autobiography. Ridiculous, because I'm still writing today at 94, so we left a lot out. But anyway, I write this thing, and I want to check out where Mrs. Sternweiss is from. I seem to recall she was a Newark girl who came on Ladies' Day and met him. I don't know the whole story. So I call Red Bank Catholic High School, where he was a football coach. And they say, well, we don't have any connection anymore. But there's a bar in town. This guy knows everybody who comes in the bar. So I call him up, and he says, he knew who I was right away because we were a pretty big paper in those days, the 8th largest in the country. So he said, I'm going to help you. She didn't work. She was a barmaid here. She didn't work here anymore. But she comes in on Friday nights. Give me your phone number. I'll give it to her. She'll call you. About 2 weeks later, I get a phone call. Is this Jerry Izenberg? Yeah, who are you? At last, she said, the little boy with the baseball, we finally meet. She said, my mother told me that story 1,000 times, and I know it's true because she never changed one comma in telling it. So that's how much I love the Newark Bears. Now I had decided, my father was a minor league ball player for about 5, 6 years. I think the last league he was in was the Delaware Lackawanna League, Class Z probably. But the thing about it was, I think he played for Hoboken, I don't remember. But the point was, there was a theory among the Jews in New Jersey. If you have tattoos and you can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery, it was never true. It's never true. But a lot of rabbis picked up on it. My old man had a white spot in his hand between the thumb and forefinger. Boys would ask him, what's that from? He'd say, baseball souvenir and nothing else. Well, now he and I are in an argument. He wants me to go to Hebrew school. And I go to public school 5 days a week, and I play baseball trying to be like him after school. And I was horrible, but I ain't going to give that up no matter what. So he says to me, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to Hebrew school. And I said, well, I never see you in Temple, which was true. I only saw him there twice, my bar mitzvah and his funeral. He was what I call a cultural Jew. He'd fight you at the drop of a hat. I mean, and there were stories about fights he got in when he was young. But he was a good athlete. So now I decided, why am I going to school? I mean, by the 7th grade, I know everything there is. I was a snotty kid. So I said, all right, I'm going to throw it up in his face. And he tells me, you always want to know about this white spot where there's no skin. I'm going to tell you. I'm playing my last professional baseball game. We win the game. We're playing up against Gloversville, New York. I go out after the game with my shortstop and my pitcher, and we get drunk, which is unusual because my father very seldom drank. And he was celebrating. Now he's waiting in the train station. He looks and he sees a little animal tattooed here. He said, what did I do last night? I can't go home. My mother will kill me. I'm playing under an assumed name as it is. He tells me that, finally tells me the story. I get off the train. I go to a pharmacy. I buy acid, and I burn the tattoo off. And that no skin ever grew there again. All right, so I'm a habitual truant in the ballpark all the time. I don't know where the Wolf's-Head Oil sign is. We made it. We could get in. We knew what to do. We were city kids when city kids were city kids. And our parents never made pals of us, so we did what we had to do. Well, I said, I got this whole ballpark. This is wonderful. I can go there. I'm going to learn more here than I'm going to learn in school. And I think I did. So I'm in the ballpark, and there's a team playing I don't recognize. You got a big E on their hat. Newark, of course, here. It's the Newark Eagles, the black team from the Negro National League. whenever the Bears go on the road, I discover now, I still got a ball game because they come into Rupert Stadium. I'm there the first day, and I'm looking, trying to figure out, they're all black. So I say to a nice guy, I said to him, who are these guys? It's my ballpark. I never saw them before. He said, well, if you come at the right time, you'll always see them. They're the Newark Eagles baseball team. And pretty soon, and he wasn't far off, they're going to win a World Series, Black World Series. So, as I recall that day, I was the only white kid in short pants in the ballpark. But I kept going back and going back. I met Monty Irvin, the shortstop. I met Larry Doby, the second baseman. And Larry Doby was the second baseman when he was a high school kid, playing under an assumed name. Abe Manley owned the Newark Eagles, black team. Everybody in that league who owned a team was a numbers guy. They were in the, not, that wasn't the way it was with Dutch Schultz. These numbers guys, sometimes they'd send a kid to college. They were neighborhood people. Abe Manley had a team in Jersey City where nobody went to see them play. They were the Brooklyn Eagles. So he said, I'm going to move to Newark. He'd been up in some ways, might have been Jersey City. It was Jersey City. He ran numbers up there. Okay, so now he moves the team to Newark. He buys a team called the Brown Dodgers, Newark Brown Dodgers, because they got three players he wants. He folds the team, takes the three guys. Now he's the Newark Eagles. And they became the heart and soul of unifying the blacks in Newark. One of the things municipal planners did that I never forgave them for, never. They started to build these concrete coffins, big high rises. That was the end of the front stoop. The blacks used to sit on the front stoop and yell to the next stoop, hey, Charlie, did you see what happened yet? You know, but they kept the Newark Eagles alive, the stoop sitters. And they always came close, but they couldn't quite make it. Well, 1946, Doby comes back from the Navy. Irvin comes back from the engineers in Europe. These guys all have great stories. And they're going to be good. And Mrs. Manley, now you have to understand the Manleys. She is my hero, my first American feminist, black lady who married Abe. Abe didn't want to run the team. Abe didn't want to sign the contracts. Abe wanted to go to little parks where nobody went, find black players, and send them to his manager. That's what he lived to do. He made her the general manager, and she kept that Newark team alive. They have a league meeting in Chicago, and Gus Greenlee, a real tough guy. Pittsburgh was the hub of that black league because they had two teams, the Homestead Grays and the Pittsburgh Crawfords. And the Pittsburgh Crawfords, everybody thought they were owned by a guy named Crawford. No, he won them in a crap game. And by doing that, they were like 8 miles apart. They became the biggest rivalry in baseball. So they had a meeting. Now here's something nobody knows. If you didn't read the book, shame on you, so you'll know it now. Don Newcomb, right-handed fireball pitcher for the Newark Eagles. Jackie Robinson, breaking the color line. Larry Doby, first in the American League. But Larry's not in this group. There's 5 guys. Ranch Rickey signs and doesn't pay the owners 1 dime. Breaks the contract. Now, Monty Irvin was supposed to be the first black player in baseball, not Jackie. They had him all scouted. He comes back from the war. He's got double vision. Calls up Ricky and he says, listen, I can't report to spring training. He thinks he's going to play for a black team. Well, the Black Dodgers. But I got this medication, and in 2 weeks I'll be ready. And Ricky politely says, oh, don't worry about that. You'll always have a job with us. Hangs up the phone and calls Horace Stoneham in New York and says, why don't we each have a black player? We'll have a great ride. And I know she wants 15,000 for him. Well, he knew it because he wouldn't pay it. Now he holds a press conference. She calls him up and says, that piece of paper he signed for you, you better hide it somewhere or tear it. I'm coming at you with every lawyer I can find. And every black lawyer will take the case for nothing. Well, Ricky was no fool. He tore up his contract. But then he called a meeting of all the black writers that for black papers, no white paper had a black writer, to come to Ebbets Field for lunch. Well, they all went. They never got invited anywhere, right? He gets up and he says, I hate to tell you this, but there's a woman in Newark who's standing in the way of your entire race. So her name's Zephyr Manley. You better write about her. And they did. And but Effa was not to be trifled with. I remember the league meeting when she said, Jackie was signed. She said, listen, we're not long for this earth. Our leagues are not going to make it. So we got to put our foot down and do something right now. First of all, we got to improve the loyalty. They'll come now, but now they'll save up to see Jackie in Baltimore and Jackie in Philadelphia. And, so we got to put some more money into our publicity. And Gus Green says, oh, Effa, we're not going to do that. We'll open the gate and they'll come. And she said, she started to cry. And she's sobbing with tears. It was like turning a faucet. I don't know. She knew just what she was doing. And Greenlee said, Effa, don't do that. I don't like to see women cry. Okay, we'll put the money in. Now the next item on the agenda is blah, 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 blah. Gus Greenlee got mad at this funny. He got mad at the great black pitcher. I'm sorry about that. I'm having a senior moment. Somebody knows. Everybody knows who he is. The great black pitcher, first black pitcher in baseball.
Satchel
Satchel
Paige.
Paige.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad I got the chorus here. Okay. Greenlee says, you're coming to every fourth game because that's when you pitch. Then you're playing for some semi-pro team. You may get spiked. I don't know what you're doing. I got to get rid of you. And he calls up Effa. He says, I'll give you the greatest showman in black. What is that? Oh, in black, the greatest pitcher in black baseball. I'll give him to you for $100. I'll take him. Then she gets an email from Paige saying, listen, I will report to the Newark Eagles if you agree to be my sideline girlfriend. They send back a message. I don't know whether Abe wrote it or Effa wrote it, but it said, stay where you are. And he never came to Newark. Now, he had a history with Dobie that was very interesting. First of all, the person who really deserves credit for integrating baseball is not for Branch Rickey, because he ripped those teams off. Bill Veeck sat down with Effa Manley. She knew they were going out of business pretty soon. Abe agreed to try it 2 more years, but it was done. And Veeck says to her, listen, Ms. Manley, I need Larry Dobie. You need money. Let's not play games here. I'll give you $10,000 for his contract. And she knew Veeck's history. Veeck was head of the Fair Housing Commission on the coast of Eastern Maryland. And when the whole district up and down the state was up in flames with Rap Brown, they never had a problem because she founded equal housing and he enforced equal housing. And he told the blacks who were barred from the movie theaters, come to my farm, I got a barn. I'm going to put a projector in there. I'm going to run first run films, black, white, Chinese. I don't care who you are. Come in and it's free. That was Vec. Mike Vec, his son, told me when I was writing the Adobe book, he remembered the day they were negotiating an end to that riot. They were sitting on Bill Vec's porch, the commander of the National Guard of Maryland and Rap Brown, and they negotiated the peace. And she knew a little more about Vec, and more people don't know the story. Vec's father was the president of the Chicago Cubs, and he grew up in a baseball environment. Now, one day he grabs Bill by the ear and pulls him in to the counting room behind the box office where they're counting the money for the day. And he says, Billy, what color is that money those guys are counting? He said, oh, Daddy, they're green. They're green money. That's right. What color are the men counting? Well, that's a black eye. That's a white. They're all different colors. Right. Don't ever forget that. That's the first lesson I'm teaching you. And there's no difference between us and them. And he carried it out. And he said to Miss Manning when she said, you know and I know, we would get $25,000 for Adobe. This is 1950, trying to remember the year.
47.
47.
Thank you. That was it, 47. And she said, you know and I know, if you were white, you'd be paying me $25,000. He said, you're right, but I can't handle more than one black at a time. I got to break that color line. I'll give you another 5,000 if he sticks with the team for 30 days before the season starts. So he was fair with her. He tried as hard as he could. And Larry was interesting, and so was he. Larry Jr., who himself was a minor league ball player, Larry Jr. Grew up with Mike Vec, their son, two sons. They'd go swimming, they did whatever. They're Maryland for the summer. Bill used to pay Mike $5 a month to keep the extra refrigerator full of beer. He said, go take him with you. I might have to send him one day. Take him with you and bring your dad and me 2 cans of beer. They were gone. And he leans over and he says to Larry, wait till the members at the local country club see the surprise I got for them. They come back down, they get out the beer. He says, Mike, you're letting Junior sit there with his tongue hanging out. It's 100 degrees. Both of you go down to the country club and take a nice swim. Go ahead. They leave. This is Maryland, non-integrated country club. And Beck says to Dobie, wait till they see the prize packages I'm sending them right now. That was Dobie. He was, and Dobie reflected Beck. Beck's first team was Minneapolis Millers, a AAA American Association team. He bought them and he took them to spring training. They always trained on the east coast of Florida. Beck told me, and he told a lot of other people, I find that their baseball IQ of human beings is in direct contravention to the price of the ticket that they're sitting in. He always headed for the bleachers. That's where you found out if your team was any good. That's what you found out what people really thought of them. And that those people knew more baseball. So he's sitting with the blacks. Sheriff comes, says, get up. You can't sit there. I can't. I'm sitting here. You can't sit here. I'll arrest you if you stay there. You want to arrest me? Tell you what you do. Send for the mayor. I understand he likes having his team here in spring training. Mayor comes. He says, well, I'm sorry about it, Mr. Vick, but that's our rule. I don't care what your rule is. You want me to take my team away? I'll take them out. I'll move them down the coast. You'll lose every paid admission and every tourist who comes here from Milwaukee to watch them in spring training. You'll never see them again. That was the end of that. They finished the season there. It was just anyway. I learned a lot of lessons from that. I learned more than if I'd gone to class. Um, and so those two teams were my heart and soul. But my dad always wanted to pitch for the Giants. I play second for the Giants, and he couldn't. So he was. I was told by his brother, he was one of these good hits, no field guy. Played second base with his chest. Took the balls off his chest. And the thing about him was so wonderful. He stayed a Giant fan no matter what. He took it so personally when the Dodgers and took Stoneham with them out west. He was livid.
Mhm.
And I was then in the newspaper business. I've been in it 76 years now. And I was writing about how bad this was that they could go and leave these people. And my dad said, well, why don't you write something to bring them back? I said, well, I'll tell you the truth. I'm 24 years old. I'm not back at the Ledger anymore. I'm at the Patterson News. I don't think anybody's going to listen to me, Dad. I just want you to know I sympathize with you. But there were three teams in New York, and you should remember this: Giants, Dodgers, Yankees. The Yankees, the stockbrokers rooted for. They rooted for General Motors and they rooted for the Yankees because they always won. There was no challenge, right? My father hated the Yankees, hated them, despised them. And as he explained to me, Dodger fans are simply crazy. They're not stable, sincere people. And as I then explained to him, I will tell you, Dad, what Giant fans are. They are a reincarnation of biblical Job. Send me the boils. Send me the bad stuff. I don't care. I'm loyal to you, Lord. Just get me a pennant once. The last pennant he saw was 37. And then Bobby Thompson came on the scene. I'll tell you, it was so good in our house when Bobby hit that home run. And he became a special friend of mine, too, when he hit that home run. My mother forgot to nag him. She stopped, gave him a vacation for a week. She didn't like the boy that my sister was going to marry, and she was driving him nuts with it, And she left him alone for about a week. I never knew my father to be as happy as he was on the phone. I called him from a payphone outside the stadium, and he said something that resonated with me years later. He said, did he touch all the bases? Remember Merkel, right? Now that's when I began to really respect Jackie Robinson as a competitor because I was there. And what I saw was Jackie standing with an umpire right behind third base. And he didn't go into the dressing room till Bobby touched every single base. You have to get, that's the kind of, and I didn't like him and I knew him. He was good with me, but actually, he was not going to surrender. And that's another thing I liked. The rivalries. I went when the Giants moved out there. I went to the Coliseum with that Chinese wall about 10 feet from home plate, where the Dodgers played their home games that year, which reminds me of the right field wall at the Polo Grounds.
Mhm.
Bobby Thompson hits that ball out left field. It was a pretty good shot, but it wasn't a tremendous home run. And they lost. And the picture of Ralph Branca crying on the dugout steps and all of that. Well, there was a pitcher, sidearm pitcher named Davis. He later pitched for the Giants too. He pitched for the Dodgers. And he's pitching the second half of a doubleheader. They have won the first, but they got a sweep because they're chasing the Phillies to see if they can win the pennant. The Giants had an infielder named Bobby Rawn, Rhawn, lifetime betting average 165 at that point.
Mm.
He comes up as a pinch hitter and drops a fly ball over the wall and not to the seats, just in the walkway, and it hits. And Davis said in the dressing room afterwards, they lose. How far is that right field wall? And somebody said, oh, it's 157 feet. He said, listen, I could stand on a pitcher's mound and piss over that wall, and that's what beat me. I'll tell you, that's what I miss. I don't love baseball the way I did. What I love is what my father taught me. What I love is what I saw Ruber say. Jersey City, New Jersey. The mayor was a political hack, and he had great influence. He got the WPA to build a ballpark for Jersey City, 22,000 seats, AAA. And of course, their hated enemies, the Newark Bears. Every 4th of July when I was 10, 11, 12, 13, my mother would hand me a brown paper bag with an apple and a bologna sandwich. And we get on the bus, kids, and go over to Jersey City, sell out. We get back on the bus, eat the sandwich, back in Newark, sell out. 22,000 tickets bought in Jersey City, 15,000 tickets bought in Newark, 39,000 people saw minor league baseball every 4th of July. That's when I love baseball. They took that away from a lot of people by Kinston, North Carolina. Newark didn't recover from losing the Bears. They really did. It was a blow to the whole city. But I discovered in the 70s, North Carolina had every form of baseball except Major League. So I said, let me go down here and see how these people support it. I turn onto the Main Street, which of course is called Main Street, Kinston, North Carolina. I have not seen oilcloth since my mother's kitchen. The tablecloth is oilcloth. There's an oilcloth sign across Main Street. God bless our tobacco farmers and our Kinston Indians. That's what minor league baseball meant. I never forgave the majors for doing for that. I at 94, probably my baseball throws probably are locked in the backwards of my mind. They're memories. They're memories. It ain't like that anymore. They extort cities for stadiums. So I'll never lose my love of baseball because I'll always think of him. But what is that?
Jerry, I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't mean
no,
to cut you off. I want to share, you talked a few minutes ago about your early days in your writing career, your newspaperman career. I want to share an excerpt with everybody. Before I do that, though, I just want to, I don't know if you can see, this is Jerry's last published book. I know you're working on another book now.
Okay, don't say last.
No, as you last published.
Yes,
The
I got
last
it.
one that was published, not your last. I know that. I know that.
All right.
You're writing another now, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I hope to
Yes.
write 3 more.
Awesome. So, before I share the excerpt from this book, I just want to say, and I said this in while we were waiting to let everybody in, but I want to share it with everybody that I've done a reasonable amount of research and read a lot of things about Larry Doby. And I thought that I had a pretty decent understanding of Larry Doby and his career and so on and so forth until I read this. This is such a personal and heartfelt telling of Larry Doby's story. And it gave me a whole new appreciation for what he went through and just reminded me again, even though I know that he still to this day doesn't get the credit that he deserves, I'm sad, and we should be sad about what's going on, but read this book. if you're any sort of baseball fan, civil rights fan, whatever, read this book. It is amazing. That said, this is the excerpt from the book that I would like to use as a springboard to what I think is one of the reasons that made you be able to have the impact that you did on New Jersey sports history. And this is what you wrote in your book. When I retired as an active member of the Baseball Writers Association of America, my membership card was actually number 3 out of perhaps a couple hundred of us. One undeniable fact never changed between then and now. Trust is an essential that leads to truth between writer and athlete. So can you talk a little bit about how you were able to build wonderful relationships with players that allowed you to tell such great stories for so many years and still tell such stories?
Well, the active word in that is told you stories, because it can't happen today. If it does, it's going to happen with a bullpen catcher, someone who wants to talk about what he has achieved because nobody knows. It can't happen. I had a sports editor, both at the Ledger and then at the Herald Tribune, who was my mentor and everything. He taught me how to write. He taught me when to write, and he taught me something else. He taught me when not to write. That's where the trust comes in. There are some stories that should never be written. There are some stories you'll be uncomfortable, they'll be uncomfortable, but you gotta write. But you gotta have that balance and know. People seem to trust me. Ali trusted me for 50 years. George Foreman, who was once a bad guy, became a great grill salesman, and up until his death, we spoke every 2 weeks. Joe Frazier, a good example. But they trusted me. And I'm not taking credit for it. I'm saying that I had the greatest of teachers. That's how I learned. There is a myth. I guess it's a myth. I don't know. I can't go back to hundreds and hundreds of years. But Michelangelo, those guys used to have 5, 6, 10 young adults following them wherever they went, trying to learn about life. They were like mobile classrooms. And now he's dying. He's done the Sistine Chapel. He's dying in bed. And he gets up on one shoulder, and somebody in the group says, "Maestro, tell us what we need to know before you go." And he says to them, "I'm still learning. I'm 94 years old. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. I'm not checking out voluntarily. I'll tell you that right now. I've done 16 books, 15 of them been published. One of them is a baseball fantasy that I know your people would like. Nobody wanted to do it. It's about black baseball, and it's a fantasy, but the thing about it, it's mystical. But every single anecdote in that book was told to me by somebody who played for the Negro National League or the Negro American League. I want to get that one published. I really do.
I want to read that one.
Yeah, the next one, my kids really want to read. It's short stories about my life, and I have some real decisions to make about. For example, the first story in the book is called Two Naked Ladies on a Murphy Bed. So it's a question of, I got to think about that before I really finish the book. Also, I want to do a book, what happens, I've only found one town, Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Baseball destroyed so many minor league teams with its greed right now. But most of them took something else because they love baseball. There are two of them that have summer league college teams, you know. There's another one unaffiliated. That's that where all the guys who should not be playing baseball anymore are playing in the league. And Newark was terrible with it, and it couldn't succeed in Newark, and they really wanted baseball. So I don't want a town that's picked up some team, or like Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Somebody bought the team and took it out of Pawtucket and moved it to Manchester, New Hampshire for this coming season. They tore down their stadium, 75-year-old stadium. There's nothing but ghosts there. They ain't going to get it. And they don't want another team, apparently, because they're not trying to get one. But I want to find one city, one team that never got they lost baseball forever like we did in Newark. That's what I want to find. Because believe me, the Major League owners are billionaires. They don't give a crap about anybody. When Kinston, North Carolina played Durham before realignment, the people from Durham got on a bus and came to Kinston and spent 3 nights in a hotel and in a local restaurant, ate 5 meals, whatever it was. It had an impact on the economy. It had an impact. There was a guy named North Johnson. He should get baseball should give him a medal. 45 years as a minor league general manager. 45. I met him outside of the Kinston Indians Park. No cement between the parking lot and the front gate. Pebbles. So he's out there with a bamboo rake, raking up all the pebbles so that none of his customers fall and hurt themselves, you know? And by the way, I just saw that thing. It is, you got the right place. I'm wrong about it. But the point is, it's not in Rhode Island. Rhode Island now has no baseball. It means something. When I went into Kinston, I spent a week down there because I loved talking to the kids. They were all kids on their way up, and they thought they were going to get there. They were living in the homes of families who boarded them there. It was just wonderful, wonderful. But I do remember this. A woman with a megaphone, a microphone, is walking around the field as the customers are streaming in. She's an entertainment person working for the team. She says, "Hey, you all stop for a second. Will you please, before you take your seats, you all remember Charlie Jones. He saw 39 straight games in his park. And then and he's 80, and then he had to have his appendix taken out. Well, I'm happy to tell you, Charlie is here again. He's sitting right on. Let's give him a Kinston welcome." And this whole freaking town, Charlie's back, Charlie's back. I mean, it's a gift you should not be allowed to take away. And now I'll turn it over to all the inquisitive people. And by the way, whoever sent that note about where the team moved to, thank you for correcting me.
Yeah, that was Dixie. Before we turn it over, there's 2 more stories that I would love for you to elaborate on for us. The first, and we kind of tie the 2 in together, but I want to read an excerpt from Larry Doby's obituary that you wrote for the Star Ledger. And just to set the scene here, it was Larry Doby's induction into the Baseball Hall of Fame was long overdue. And when word finally came, Jerry was amongst the friends and family members that took the trip with Larry to Cooperstown. And he, we'll say, called in a favor maybe, or just asked a friend, whatever,
No.
Approached Jeff Idelson, who was not the president of the Hall of Fame at that time, but was on the staff.
Yes.
And said, "I want Larry to have some time in the Hall of Fame by himself. Can we arrange something?" And Jeff Idelson agreed, and Jerry and Larry took a trip through the Hall of Fame together one night after closing, the night before his induction. And this is what Jerry wrote about that. He paused repeatedly, he being Larry Doby, paused repeatedly and conducted his own nonstop soliloquy about the exhibits and the game he loved. His heart smiled at some of those memories. His silence spoke volumes at some of the other ones. I finally understood that night just how much he loved this game and why, with all the heartache, it remained forever a part of his life. And I would love for you to share with us what it was like to have a front row seat to a Hall of Fame career. And you also, if we could work into that, you had told a story about a baseball that he hit at Hinchliffe Stadium that landed in a pretty remarkable spot, if you know Hinchliffe Stadium, and what it sits next to. Can you talk about those things for
Sure.
us, please?
Sure. Monty Irving, is much older, even though they were teammates on the team called the Smart Set, a semi-pro team. And the first baseman, Pearson, his name was, on the Newark Eagles, said, I got a girlfriend up in Patterson, and I'd like to see her again. Take the ride with me. There was no parkway. So I would take the ride with me. He said, I'll take the ride with you. But if they're playing a game at Hinchcliffe, leave me off there and pick me up on your way back. So he's sitting there, and this skinny kid, tall, skinny kid, with feet he has yet to grow into, hits a ball over the wall and into the falls, the great falls of Patterson, it's unbelievable. He runs, he can't wait to get back. He says, faster, I got to call Abe. I got to tell him what I saw. The kid's black. He calls Abe, and Abe says, well, yeah, I know a little bit about him. You don't know enough about him. You got to see this kid swing. Listen, there's a black umpire who does a lot of their high school games. I spoke to him. He said, I will be embarrassed if somebody else signs this kid. So I'm going up to have a tryout with him next week. They have the tryout. Now, Effa runs all the business and says to him, you want him? He says, oh boy, do I want him. Okay, we'll go up and see her tonight. She went back to her maiden name, which I don't remember what it was. So we'll say Mrs. Doby. She says, he says, the only place your son can play professional baseball now is for us in Newark, and he'll be appreciated, and he'll make money. And she said, well, I'm not worried about money. And I'm not thinking about money. And Effa says, I can give you $100 a month. Give him $100. He said, I don't want to talk about that. In 1 second, this loving mother turned the interview upside down. It was now like an overprivileged white lady trying to tell the camp director she's going to send her kid to for the first time, is she good enough to be their son's camp director? That's how it went. She said, I have some qualifications. So she said, well, listen, qualifications, I'll tell you, he's going to be great. And she said, well, Mrs. Manley, I don't know if you have any children, which she did not, but being a mother is a difficult thing. You got a team of grown men playing this rough, tough game. And after the game, they all go out and do what grown men do. I'm not having my son. He was a senior in high school. I'm not going to have him do that. If we let him sign with you, he can only play until he graduates in June. I mean, he can't go on the road till then. If there's a game in Newark, he stays in your home. I don't want him trying to get home, so he stays in your. When he starts traveling, then he's on the road. He's got a room with you. He's talking to Mr. Manley. Well, he wasn't too happy because he and his wife had a very interesting arrangement in their marriage. Suddenly, he didn't want to have a son in the middle of an empty hotel room. And he said, it'll be no problem. Then she says, what about basketball? He said, Mrs. Manley, we don't play basketball. He said, no, but he does. And he's got a 4-year scholarship to LIU under Claire B. And I don't want him to wind up the way they took the medals away from the guy in the Olympics because he played semi-pro baseball. No. Abe says, listen, not a problem. He says, young man, forget who you are. You are now Larry Walker from Crenshaw High School in Los Angeles, California, and you will be that until your second year with the Eagles. And he was. There is no record of that first year of him being with the Eagles. Larry Walker was there. I'm wondering when they combined all the averages, whether Dobie got credit for that. He might not have because he doesn't appear on the roster.
I think that when they went back and the Negro League statisticians went back, I believe that was counted in there.
They knew who Larry Walker was?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not 100% certain, but I'm 99% certain.
Well, I want him to get all the average he could get.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, I have not told your audience, but I was instrumental in getting him in the Hall of Fame. Not the key guy at all. The last year, it looked like the Veterans Committee was going to drop him. And Larry says to me, Jerry, I really appreciate what you've done, but don't embarrass yourself anymore. Don't write I should be in there, but just let it go. I'm letting it go. I'm going to go live with Newcomb during that week in his condo in California. Well, I got to take a shot. So I write a vicious column. It starts with, why am I not surprised that Larry Dobie at the Veterans Committee won't put Larry Dobie in the Hall of Fame? Because half of you guys in the first place didn't want him to get one at bat. Then I copied the column. And then I mailed it to every member of the Veterans Committee. Now, that's typical. My mother said, you're going to get in trouble, you know. Anyway, good trouble, as Claiborne said. Now, I circle everything in the I mail it to them. And I wait. I get one answer. It starts, dear asshole, Monty and Yogi and I have been trying to get this man into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Get your fat ass off the couch and get the votes we need. And it's signed Ted Williams, who really loved Dobie. In fact, when Dobie changed to the outfield, in those days you used to throw your glove on the outfield grass and pick it up when you're going back out. He's bending over to pick up his glove. Somebody swats him in the ass. Up go the fist. He looks up. It's Williams, who's laughing. He says, keep your head up. Keep your head up. You're going to be a great one. And I'm convinced that Williams did more than anybody else to get him in. And he didn't give Williams the credit, really. He gave it to me. But I took it. I took it because of the feeling we had. I felt so helpless for so many years. I couldn't do anything for him. But he was a great man. I'll tell you somebody who nobody knows enough about, Mrs. Larry Dobie. Junior told me this story. He actually saw it and heard it. She's watching television, and some celebrity has married a baseball player. And she says to the interviewer, I'm not going to be one of those baseball wives. You know, I'm going to be a lot more than that, a lot more than that. And Mrs. Dobie, Helen, Helyn, says, who the hell does she think she is? She's going to be more than a... Does she know what a baseball wife is? Who pays the mortgage? Who gets the garage door fixed when he's on the road in Cincinnati? Who, you know, she goes on and on. He said, I never saw her that man in my life. They shared a great, and I'll tell you the essence of a great marriage. They had one fight, and it was so bad that it turned Larry Doby Jr.'s head around because they were screaming at each other. He wanted to buy a bar near the Grand Hotel where the Eagles, who didn't live in Newark, would live, you know, and it was, that's the place that Mrs. Doby wanted to keep him out of. They all went to the Eagles game, right? But sometimes they didn't know the name of the player. They knew the number. They'd get on the they'd be in the hotel ballroom where the Eagles were watching the Eagles eat their meal, and they'd pull those long skirts that you'd step on if you got any longer, pull them up about 5 or 6 inches and across their legs. And if they couldn't remember the name, they would go to the PA system and say, hey, number 14, come on over here. I want to meet you. Mrs. Doby was very careful about that. But I'll tell you one thing. The bar was right down the block. Larry said, I'm going to do it. Newcomb's got a bar. I'm going to do it. I'll make it succeed. And you're going to help. And she said, Larry, I'll help you. But you're throwing our money away. And they got in a real fight. Then he got an offer to play in Japan. She said, all right, don't think about it. I'll bring in my brother and my brother-in-law, and we'll run the bar while you're away. But it ain't going to work. To get out of that in the end, it cost them $40,000 they lost in those days. But the big thing was, never once did Helen Doby say to Larry, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. And that's an example for a lot of wives. They were just a marvelous couple. In that book that you held up, there's several pictures I call your attention to. One picture, Don Newcomb is trying to restrain her and keep her in her seat while he's talking. And she's applauding, she's going crazy. Next to that is a picture of Doby speaking. And next to that, he has just sat down and he's got a handkerchief out and he's wiping the tears out of his eyes.
I'm looking. I don't know that it's going to show well if I try and hang it up on the screen, but yet another incentive for people to buy this book.
Absolutely.
Let's turn this over to Jim, who is number 2 in the leadership in the Goose Goslin chapter, and Jim is going to moderate some questions from the gallery.
Sure.
Yeah, so anyone who has a question, feel free just to raise your hand and I will call on you. And Gary, I think you're going to be first. I just have one question I want to ask Jerry, because I got to tell you, Jerry Unplugged is just a delight. It really, really is. Just really fascinating. Jerry, here's a question I have for you, just as a writer. What was one of the more difficult, challenging articles you ever had to write or story you've ever had to tell?
They were all obituaries. Larry's obituary, Ali's obituary, Irvin's obituary. Those were the 3 guys I was closest to who were athletes. You know, it's you want to say the right thing. And I really couldn't do it properly unless it was a guy I really knew. You know, everybody says nice things about people when they die. That's not a trick. And that's not necessarily wrong. But I remember I wrote an obituary column for my father, my mother, and my sister. And I put as much into them and it shook me as much as the ones I did for Dobie and Irvin and Ali. They were all friends of mine. I was in a unique, and also, hey, I'm the oldest guy in the world, just about writing. I mean, everybody I came into the last guy I came into the business with, same year, died this year. Jerry Green, who covered one more Super Bowl than I did. I did the first 53. He did the next one. They're all gone. I'm reminded of the day I sat on a bench with Casey Stengel between a doubleheader. And he was at the point now where he would fall asleep between the doubleheader. He'd take a little nap. He went for 1 week to the Kansas City School of Dentistry. And when he couldn't remember your name, he'd call you doctor. Well, doctor, yeah. So I said to him, Case, who are your best friends? Is anybody, I didn't think anybody was left. And he said, well, doctor, I'll tell you the truth. At the present time, my best friends are dead. Well, he said at present time, like there would be another time. I hope that answered your question.
It did. Thanks, Jerry. Gary, you're first up. I think you're unmuted, so far away.
Jerry, great to see you.
Good to see you.
You're a national treasure and you deserve every accolade that is thrusted upon you. I have one quick question. I know I've been trying to get people to discuss things with you and you were busy. I guess being interviewed for a documentary on your life. What is going on with that?
They're trying to fund it, and I ain't helping them. They've got some interesting people. Parcells these are people who've given interviews already for the show. Parcells, Jim Lampley, Mark Diono, who worked for the Ledger for years. He was my student. And he interviewed me for the New Jersey State Hall of Fame. And you can see that interview. It's in the Hall of Fame archives. And it's an excellent interview. And he reminded me of the time he was my student for 2 years. Then I got him a job with the Post. Then I got him a job with the Ledger, and he was working for the Ledger. Now I take him to a fight. Two Filipino, Flash Olordi, the best Filipino boxer before Pacquiao. And he's fighting a Neo-Rican, which is a Puerto Rican who never got to Puerto Rico and who couldn't speak Spanish and lived in the housing project. And the whole project, all of them went out to see this fight. Well, I'll tell you, I don't know if he hit you, but he hasn't hit Flash Olordi yet. So he lost 15 rounds, he lost every round. But they're not seeing things up in the balcony at Garden. And they're cheering every time he throws a punch. And now he loses it. He doesn't win a round. They take the fire hoses off the wall. They take the fire axes down. They chop up seats. They're throwing them all at ringside. And I'm sitting under the ring, and I'm writing my column under the ring. And the real hero isn't me for writing it. It's a little short guy named Mandelbaum from the AP, from the Western Union, who crawls out on the floor, takes a page from me, crawls back for the second page. Anyway, and then a woman gets hit with a bottle, and I pull her under the stand. Now, the next day, Harry Markson, who was the vice president for boxing, calls me up. He says, Jerry, I don't think I would have called what happened last night at the Garden a riot. I said, no, what would you call it, Harry? He said, I'd call it more of a disturbance. And I said, you're probably right. My dad taught me, no matter how bad the experience, learn from it. And he walked right into it. He said, and did you learn anything last night? I said, I sure did. Puerto Rican rum bottles don't shatter, but Gallo wine bottles do.
Best of health to you, Jerry. Continue doing what you do best.
Thank you.
Victor Sloan, you are next.
Thanks. First of all, I read your book, Baseball, Nazis, and Edicts, Hot Dogs. My father grew up in Newark and went to East Side, class of 45. So there were a lot of parallelisms.
Yes. Did you like it? I hope so.
I loved it.
That book is very important. The last 3 books I've written, my novel, because I had never written a novel till I was 88, what I call the Jew book, which is the book you're talking about, and Dobie. I would have written them for no money. They were in me, had to be written.
The novel's on my next on my list. My
You'll-
question
you'll like-
is, sorry,
You'll like it.
if it was anything like the other two, I'll love it. My question is following on your discussion of how baseball sort of has lost its soul, and even in the minors, it's all about money, and they rip the
Especially in the minors.
yeah the majors too. I mean, so
No, but I mean, they took the game away from most of those teams.
right, and they contracted, and my question is, where does one go to get the real experience now? Is there any place left?
Some of the existing minor league clubs have loyalties that are built in it, but they're higher. To me, baseball, when my father was dying, and I was writing for the paper, but I didn't have a column yet. I used to take him to Irvington on a hill. Prudential and a couple of the companies had teams, and they played these games. Prudential against Worthington Pump, and my dad lost himself in those games. Nothing in baseball is like that today. Patterson had a team. I know there's a couple of people from Patterson there. Had a team called the Silk Sox, but they also had a team where Dobie and Larry both played, called the Smart Set. And that was a heyday of pass the hat baseball. And they were an all-black team, and they would play a team called the Chevrolet, Patterson Chevrolets, or whatever. They were sponsored by Chevrolet. They play that game in the park that the white team used. They made enough money for the year to keep the kids happy. It was an amazing sight. I said I found a guy, 100 years old, who was Larry's teammate in high school. And I said to him, think for a minute. Did you ever play a game with a black guy on your team? Because I was after something else. And he said, come to think of it, Larry was the only one. But he said, Mr. Izenberg, he wasn't a black guy. He was our teammate. He was the best athlete they ever had. Football, baseball, basketball, and track. And he said, the thing about it was, football parties, he was always invited, and the white girls loved him. He could be in any group. That changed a lot when he got to the majors.
Thank you.
He had a manager who hated him. Lou Boudreau. Didn't play him. Played in 19 games his first. Hit 157. The front office was begging Vec to send him back. And you know what Vec did? There was a great outfielder named Tris Speaker, a rival of Ty Cobb. They were the 2 best players in the league. Boston traded him to Cleveland. He became a playing manager, and then he quit, and he was selling whiskey, for deer, packaged whiskey in stores. And Beck hired him to be a goodwill ambassador. And after 1 year, which was Larry's first, he said, "Put away your speeches. You're not making speeches. You're going to teach that kid right there how to play the outfield." What he didn't know, and what Larry didn't know, was that he was from Humble, Texas. Speaker, he was a member of the Klan. And now he sees this little black, 23 years old kid, never really been anywhere. And they're about as different as you can be from each other. But because they were so different, they began talking. He was a project. So they began talking during breaks about their lives. Larry could not imagine living the life this guy had led in the Klan. And this guy couldn't imagine Larry sitting down and talking to him. And they became great friends. And that's what made Larry the great outfielder he was.
We have two more, let's see here. Craig, who I think has been joined first by the dog and now I think by the spouse. So Craig, you're next.
Hi, Jerry. Congratulations on winning this award.
Hi, Jerry.
Well, thank both of you. I don't think it's deserved, really, honestly. But you're fooled, I'm happy.
I agree. Not deserved, Jerry, but we love you.
Well, that's something, I guess.
Jerry, I was going to ask you about if this story isn't for public consumption, just say you don't know what I'm talking about. Larry Gabay and the blizzard.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. We never had a relationship in the beginning. They were a lousy team. I didn't have to write about them. They were 500 miles from home. When they would come to play the Yankees, I might be up there to write about a Yankee, or I might be up there for some other reason. But the point is, it was, "Hi, Larry, hi, Jerry," and that was it, nothing. Then we had a blizzard, and you're both too young, but when we had blizzards, we had capital B blizzards. And the doorbell rings, and I said, "Who the hell is out in this crap?" I didn't say it that nicely. I opened the door, and it's him, and snow is coming down. And he looks at me and says, "Well, what do you drink?" And I was reasonably honest in those days. It wasn't the Jerry Izenberg you knew, Pam. The answer was simple. If it's wet, I'll drink it. I was pretty bad. I was a bad guy. And he said, "I'll be here with a bottle of scotch at 7 o'clock," and left. And he's walking off into the snow. There's nobody on the street. What the hell does he want? I can't imagine what he wants. He comes with a bottle. He puts it on the kitchen table. I do my part, and it's mortally wounded before the evening's over. We don't get up from that kitchen table until it's 10:30 in the morning. And the sun is high in the sky. And he's told me stories I had no idea about. For me, it was a critical learning experience. For him, it was an exorcism. Things that he carried around inside him. And I knew this guy and I were going to make it. I mean, we're going to really get to be friends. It was wonderful. And he was so human. When he retired, if the yogi retired, their wives would give them honeydew notes. Honeydew this, honeydew that, do your home around the house. They'd put them in their pocket. They'd meet on the street. They'd go to the VFW or the American Legion. They'd sit in there, hear the notes up, watch baseball, and then go home. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't quite get to it." They were really close friends. Larry could have been. I think when I first met Larry, he was a very bitter guy, and I think in some ways I helped him because what I wanted to uncover was what I didn't know myself, and I was discovering things, from him. He was when we this is a long story. He used to take the train from Tucson to Cleveland when they went, when they went to after the spring training. That train was shared by the Giants, who trained in Arizona. And the train, when they got to the bottom of Georgia, would split. The Giants would go back to the Polo Grounds. The Indians would head to Cleveland. He was telling me a story one day. He's playing a game. I really don't remember the name of the town. I wish I did. It could have been Americus, Georgia. I just don't know. And they threw full beer bottles at his head. This is his first. He didn't have spring training the first year, so he has to go back to the South where he left very not willingly at the time because he's friends with it, but where he became a really New Jerseyite with Patterson. And they're throwing these bottles at his head. He walks off the field. The manager says, "Where are you going?" He said, "I ain't going out there. You want to play out there? You go play out there." Goes inside, takes a shower, comes out. And there's a guy waiting for him. Good-looking, tall guy, happens to be black, Phi Beta Kappa key, three-piece suit. He said, "Mr. Dobie, I am the only black physician in this town. And my wife and I think it's a shame that you got to sit in that tourist thing for blacks with a cake of ice on the table, a little fan blowing on the ice, and you're sitting in the undershirt. We want you to stay with us because you play this every year." So he stayed there 3 years. He was a member of the family. Then they began flying, and that was the end of that. Now it's the day before his induction. He tells me a story he's never told me. He's never told Larry Doby Jr. He tells me about the black guy. He said, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I picked up the paper and read a story about a sit-in in this town at the lunch counter, and a doctor was shot dead on the spot, and it was his doctor, his guy. I said, "You're complaining to me you don't know what to talk about tomorrow at the speech. You got to tell that story." He said, "It's not the right place." I said, "You got to tell it. You owe that guy. You've got to do it." He said, "I got something else in mind." He made the greatest 6 minutes and 27 second speech, I clocked it, I ever heard in my entire life. He said, and it's on, you can see it on YouTube. He said, "A lot of people complain baseball hasn't been fair. We don't have a black manager. We don't. Very few black base coaches. We haven't made enough progress." That's what they're saying. Well, I challenge you. Tell me, who's made more progress, baseball or America? Answer that question, if you can. And then he said, "I'm here to tell you, when I won my second year, I won the World Series with a home run. The pitcher was a guy they wanted 5 innings out of. He was the lowest pitcher in the rotation. But he pitched a whole game. And he wins. And he calls Larry, come over in the dressing room." Larry goes over, and a guy from the Cleveland Indians, the Cleveland newspaper, takes the picture. Larry Jr. said to me, "I walk by that picture every year, meant nothing to me." This guy's kids walked by that picture. It was just something in his den of memorabilia. And then it hit both of them how much the picture really meant. That picture kept Larry going because he kept it in his suitcase. And when he was really getting down, because he wasn't beloved overnight. He had 3 times that city he couldn't buy the house he wanted in Patterson. So he moved out. And on top of that, the mayor had to intercede the first year. Couldn't get him in this exclusive neighborhood, but he got him in a nice place. She was pregnant, and babies were due, you know, and they kept coming. And his point was, I'm going to make it. You know, I'm not going to let anybody discourage me. In fact, the greatest moment in his life, he was playing for the White Sox. It was a distinctive moment. And there was a pitcher, I won't mention his name, who threw at his head. It was a journeyman pitcher, and every team that pitcher was with, he threw at Larry's head. Finally, he goes to the Yankees. He throws one and he threw behind his head, because batters lean back. That's when you really want to hit a guy in the head. Larry put the bat down, went out to the mound, and leveled this guy with one left hook. And now the Yankees are on top of Larry, all the Yankees. And Moose Scarron is banging his head against the ground. And he looks to his tangle of legs, and Walt Dropo, the white first baseman for the Chicago White Sox, is leading the charge out to fight the Yankees. And he said to himself, isn't this some shit? I finally got teammates after 8 years. He was quite a person. He had a big influence on me. One day comes to me and he says, take this envelope. What do you want me to do with it? Take it, you'll know what to do. Well, why are you giving me this envelope? It's because of Project Pride, who you, young lady, know a little bit about as a traffic cop. So I opened it up. It's $1,000 check from Dobie for Project Pride. I said, no. Give this to Montclair has a program in your honor. Give it to them. Don't give it. I'm not taking any more from you, because he ran our SAT program, and those kids were terrified of him. So I look at it. It's $1,000 check made out to Project Pride. I said, I'm not taking this. He said, oh, the white boy is still telling the black guy how to spend his money. That's what this is, huh? So I took it. He was an amazing guy, and always, you know, the one thing about him that people don't understand, but it's simple and clear to me, because I've experienced a lot of black-white prejudice in my life. He told those kids he wanted to be on the board of directors. I said, nobody can be on the board of directors if don't say take over a program. He said, give me the SAT program. He made a speech to those kids. You're going to tell me how bad you've had it because you're black. You're going to tell me all that crap. Walk in my shoes for a while, you know. He said, you'll see where I went. You'll see what that. Don't tell me any whining. And he pointed to me. This man is giving you an SAT preparation that white kids in the suburbs don't get. It's the best program in America. You're getting it free. You better show up on time or you'll deal with me. He was tremendous. He was a great, great man. And I'll never forget, I have a picture of Monty Irvin in a wheelchair, and I'm bending over hugging him. I was so tired of it. Anytime you saw anything in the paper about Newark, it was a drug bust. It was this, it was that. So I said, okay, I'm going to do some research. I found 14 baseball players who played on the 4 teams that came out of Newark, who are in the Hall of Fame. So we had a meeting. We called everybody in. We had the surviving players in the black leagues. We put up plaques around that ballpark that they screwed up, all the way around. And there was a 15th plaque, and I was pissed off because county exec put it up for me because of all the halls of fame I'm in. And he said, you got to say something. I said, I'm not saying, you got to say something now. I got up and I said, okay, now you know, there goes the neighborhood. And I went over to Irvin, and I hugged him and he hugged me. He said, when are you going to finish that book about Larry? I said, well, I really haven't started. He said, You better damn well get it done. I don't know how much. I want to be able to read it. I know I'm going to die. He said, I said, okay, I'll give you the book. I can't give it to you Thursday. I have a dentist appointment, but I'll try my best to finish it after that. And he was dying. And it was a dying man's request because he left a note on his desk in assisted living in Houston for his daughter, who came in every morning. If I should pass away during the night, make sure you call Jerry. So all of us, we were all, my three closest friends, outside of my wife and my kids when they behaved themselves, was Monty Irvin, Larry Doby, and Muhammad Ali. And I learned a lot from each of them. And I think they learned from me. The last quote George Foreman had, George and I spoke every 2 or 3 weeks till he died. He was interviewed by somebody about me. And he said, well, I'll tell you what he said about me. There's a bust up on that mantelpiece of Thurgood Marshall. I won the Thurgood Marshall Scholarship Committee Humanitarian of the Year Award. And I invited him to come and present it. And he came. He couldn't walk. He had a knee transplant. He held the trophy over his head. I mean, the way I would hold his coffee cup. I mean, it was big. Put it down. Came around, put his arm around me. He said, you got 1,500 people in this room and you're all wondering why you're here. I'm going to tell you because some of you don't know. Put his arm around me. He said, this man right here, something he wrote, something he said, something you heard from him in an interview, whatever it was, something touched all your lives. And I'm here to tell you, he touched mine more outside of the ring than when I was in it. I never forgot it. They were good people. You wonder how they got hooked up with me? I don't know. Your wife gave up on me. Go ahead.
Jerry, I kind of, as you're telling these stories, especially like Larry Doby and, Muhammad Ali and others who opened up to you. So maybe Casey Stengel is right. Maybe you are a doctor, and maybe partly as a therapist, and there is that trust that's built, and they open up to you, and that's really,
but it took Larry till
it's a real gift. It's a real gift.
Didn't help Larry till he was 78.
Yeah,
we went through a lot together, boy.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, I've been blessed. A lot of good people in my life. I had a bunch of surrogate fathers. My father was my hero, still is, always will be. Nobody could teach me as much as he could. He could do it with a look. He looked at me when I did something wrong, didn't raise his voice. He looked at me like a Hebraic scholar who was trying to teach a stupid kid to get ready for bar mitzvah. And it was the 45th time he made a mistake in pronunciation of the blessing. That's all I had to see was the look. One day when I was 10 years old, he looks at me and he says, get outside and sweep the sidewalk. I thought he was kidding. I didn't know people did that. My father bought that house for $6,000. Every window in it was broken and a staircase in the front was collapsing. But they fixed it and we lived in it. And I went outside and I knew I did something wrong. I'm sweeping it into the gutter, right? And it's a little dust, a gum wrapper, it's not a lot of stuff. And he's looking at me with his arms crossed. I'm doing something wrong and he's going to tell me. And finally he says, are you done? I said, yeah, what are you going to do? I'm going to play baseball. Sure, you're going to play baseball. You'll play baseball. After you go in the house, you pick up a dustpan. If you have to make 40 trips, you take that garbage out of the gutter, and put it in our garbage cans in the back because it's the Izenberg garbage. It's not the city of Newark's garbage. And I did it, but that's how I learned things. You know, my whole life, I don't know, I'm wasting the time of you people, I know, but my whole life, that's in the book that, was it you? Somebody mentioned they bought the book about me being Jewish as a kid. Was it you who read it or somebody else? Well, anyway, somebody read it. It's called Baseball Nazis and Edict Shot Dogs Growing Up Jewish in Newark in the Depression. And he never yelled at me about anything. But he told me one joke my entire life, and it was to teach me a lesson. He told me gave me one piece of advice my entire life. I come home from Korea. I'm divorced. I'm back at the Ledger now after a year or so. And they're sending me on the road to cover the PGA tournament in Philadelphia. Oh, I'm going to get a little expense account. I'm going to run wild. I want to get down there. I'm an important person. My father comes home from work and he says to me, I understand you're going on a road trip. I said, yeah. He said, let me tell you something that I learned firsthand. The road can make a bum out of the best of us. And I had that. And don't ask me why I had it or how I had it. That's none of your damn business. But whatever you're going to do, I've already done. He said, I'm not telling you who to sleep with. I'm just telling you one thing. Don't ever go to bed, ever, with somebody you're ashamed to wake up with. 30 years go by, I'm divorced again, and now I'm in the Great Northern Hotel in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And even Lombardi's glare can't melt the snow. It's over my waist. The bar's open all night in the hotel. The hotel's called the Great Northern. It ain't great, but it's very northern. No Venetian blinds. Yellow A's shades. The consistency that Gregorian monks must have written chants on. So I see this woman, and she smiles and I smile, and I'm thinking to myself, when we're drunk, you know, they all look good. Do we look that good to them when they're drunk? I wondered. So I pursued it further. We went upstairs. Now it's the next morning. There's an oblique tear in the shade. The sun is coming right through. And I hear, and I look and I say, Mother of God, I'm in bed with a water buffalo. And I look at the ceiling and I say, sorry, Dad. The joke we'll have to save for some other time. Hello. I can't hear you.
Hey, Donna, well, I know Jerry's taking that call.
Yeah.
I know we're getting close to extra inning time here. Do you think we should kind of start wrapping up?
Yeah, I do, because Tom is still here on the call. I just want to ask that question that Tom put in the chat.
Sure. Okay, good.
And then yeah, and then we can wrap it up from there.
Sorry about this.
Okay.
Well, you know,
Oh, Jerry, you got to put your headset back on.
1 minute. Okay,
Hold on.
speak.
Okay, there we go.
Well, I hope I didn't disappoint you.
Jerry, you're
Not-
you're like, going extra innings here and you're still the starting pitcher. I'm just like amazed. So it's we're a captive audience here.
Well, I used to get anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 a speech. And now I'm 96, 94. And now when I go in a room and open my mouth, they all run out.
Well,
So you are a captive audience.
absolutely. Donna, you want to ask the question that Tom
Yeah.
posted, and then
Sure. There's one more question, Jerry, that's in the chat, and then we'll wrap this up. It's from Tom Emerson, who is here. He's a member of the Elysian Fields chapter. And he says, Claire B., a blast from the past, Jerry. Basketball legend at LIU. Did you say
Yes.
that Larry Doby was offered a scholarship there?
He had a scholarship. He left school after 1 year. Freshman couldn't play, and he was worried about the service, and he was right. So he went to Virginia Union, played a little basketball there, and left school to enlist in the Navy. And he go ahead.
That scholarship was the reason why he played as Larry Walker, correct?
Yes. Yeah, because Jim Thorpe. She knew the story. Everybody knew the story of Jim Thorpe. And that son of a bitch who ran the IOC, Avery Brundage, I hated him before I started to hate people in the NCAA. That's how early I was wise to him.
Wow.
Well, Jerry, this has been an absolute delight. And I want to thank you so much for taking a good chunk out of your afternoon/evening, because Jerry's in Nevada, so it's a little earlier for him than it is for us.
Where am I going?
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You blessed us with a wonderful evening, and I know many more people are going to watch the recording of this. And I want to thank you for your continued contributions to the sports world in your wordsmithing and your coming on presentations like this to share your stories. They are amazing. I want to invite everybody, please, if you're available, to join us again next Tuesday when we are going to have on legendary baseball artist Dick Perez and filmmaker Mark Evans. They're going to be talking to us about a film that actually has its streaming debut, video on demand debut this Friday, April 25th. It's called The Diamond King. It is an amazing story. I've seen the film, and you might actually even recognize a few faces in there if you watch it, and I hope you all do. It's a great story about immigration and relationships and baseball, all told through Dick Perez's art. And Mark and Dick have very generously offered a number of giveaways to people who rent or buy the movie during that first week of streaming. If you are on the Elysian Fields mailing list, you have gotten the details about that already and the giveaways. If you're not and you'd like to know, please shoot me an email. You can reach me at thelensofdonnam@gmail.com. I'd love to have you on the call. And even if you can't be on the call and you want to see the movie and get your hand on those giveaways, that's certainly available to you. So I want to leave everybody with one last thought. And this is we'll call it a motto that Larry Doby had printed on his 8x10s that he would sign and give to people. And I think it's a great thing for all of us to live by. And it says, I cannot change yesterday. I can only make, oh my goodness, excuse me. I can only make, we'll start over. I cannot change yesterday. I can only make the most of today and look with hope toward tomorrow. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Jerry, for blessing us. Have a wonderful night, everybody, and we'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.